Kiwis love being outdoors, so why not transform your outdoor living space with a sun view? With our quality range of stylish pergolas, outdoor blinds and awnings, having a sun view is like adding a new room to your home, but for a fraction of the price. Enjoy the outdoors all year round with a range of products to suit your needs. Book a free consultation now with Sunview and see the difference.
Now, we did speak about field days when it was on a couple of weeks back, and indeed had a chat to some of the organisers. And all in all, it was a success. And one of the many impressive sites was the first ever drone zone. You don't all gather and drone on. No, it was a place that highlighted how technology is transforming farming and fishing in New Zealand. The new area attracted major drone companies along with visitors keen to see how drones are being used in everything from crop spraying to land mapping. Globally, more than 300,000 agricultural drones are now in use, covering about 550 million hectares of farmland. And it's not just a farm where they are proving popular. A spokesman for Fishing Drones New Zealand says fishermen can now fly a drone loaded with bait out over 1 kilometre offshore, removing the need to cast and increase the chances of landing fish. President of the Agricultural Drone Association, Craig Simpson, says drones have gone from novelty to necessity and predicts that within a few years most farmers will have at least one drone sitting in the shed alongside their tractors and quad bikes. And Craig joins me now. Good afternoon.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, Craig. Hey, look, good to talk to you. How was field days for you? Good fun?
Yeah. It was a wetter field days, but gosh, it was busy, mainly because we were flying one of the big agricultural spray drones at the event, and that really drew the crowds.
Yeah, well, I've seen a little bit of a picture. I mean, they're quite the monster. So did you get a lot of interest, Craig? Were farmers open to the idea?
Yeah, the point of this year with the drone zone was a lot of people don't realise how big and how effective they are. Once they get a look and go, oh gosh, that's carrying between 50 and 70 litres, and they then start the conversation of, can I use that in place of a vehicle or a helicopter or a truck or so on, and it just sparks that conversation. So yeah, we were a bit overwhelmed. I think we had 9 people on the stand, and there were periods of time where we could have done with a couple more. So it was busy.
Oh, geez, that's a great place to be when you're at something like field days or anywhere like that. That's brilliant. So you yourself, Craig, a little bit about yourself. You've been in the industry about 5 years, I read. And did you have much to do with drones prior to that?
No, my background is tech, and then about 10 years ago I started an off-grid solar company, and so we were bringing in a lot of gear from China, and so I got a massive warehouse, and it's a big business. And then a friend of mine came in and said, oh, could you download some data? You know IT, can you download some data from my drone? And I went, yeah. And he turned up with this massive spray drone. I was like, what's that? And that pretty much sparked it for me. It was, he goes, yeah, there's not many in New Zealand. We probably need to grow the industry. And I thought, well, that sounds like my next great adventure. So,
nice. You've also said it's kind of you're entering an interesting phase. What did you mean by that?
Okay, so 5 years ago, the drones were not that great. They were, the people that bought them were sort of the real sort of early adopters. However, now drones are being bought by agricultural contractors, and they're going out there, and there's helicopters that do the big work, and then there's your truck or your vehicle that does the work, the big work at the bottom. But if it's too wet, or it's too steep, or it's too awkward, and it's not big enough for a helicopter, then the drone does that job at a really effective rate. And now the drones are bigger, and they've got better software and systems. They're now doing that work at a really competitive rate. So we went from a few drones in operation in New Zealand to now about 140 at last count.
Oh,
So,
wow. Okay.
yeah, so we're fast getting to 300 and these drones are big agricultural drones. We're
Yeah.
fast getting to a couple of hundred of those in the market, which is really changing the way people are applying fertilizer and spray and so on.
Yeah. Well, actually, I
And
wanted to kind of ask more about that. So you mentioned fertilizers and sprays. What other uses would farmers be using it for? I gather I could imagine it's to get, steep farm country and places that vehicles struggle, the all weather. Is it that kind of
yeah,
stuff? Yeah.
yeah. I had someone that had a real steep farm, big farm, lots of employees, and he said there is whole parts of our farm we've never done anything with because it's not big enough
Oh,
for me to
wow.
get a aircraft in, and so we graze it and we put the cows there, but we've never fertilised it or done anything with it because you just roll a vehicle over if you tried to. And he goes, I'm not
Yeah.
putting guys. And he had a gorse problem and so on, and the drone just solved that problem real easy. And it's the same with fertiliser. There's a lot of areas that are not big enough that you'd get a plane in, but they are certainly not somewhere you would drive a vehicle, whereas now you can put urea on those places and they shoot away. So overseas, they are using drones, especially in Asia, way more than we do, these big ag drones.
Yeah.
And I think that's because we've already got really good high-end quality equipment, whereas over there, they make a quantum leap forward. A bit like, in some parts of Asia and Africa, they didn't even bother getting landlines. They just jumped straight to cell phones. Well, agriculture overseas, they're all just jumping straight to drones. Yeah.
I could see that. That makes sense. You've said you mentioned that at the moment the drones are kind of mostly done by contractors, I gather, who come in and do it because they absorb the regulation and the training and all that. Does that mean though at the moment it's probably a bit too expensive for farmers to buy one themselves? Yeah.
Yeah, the regulatory overhead is quite high at the moment, and that's because it's governed by civil aviation, by CAA, and they've probably taken a very conservative approach. So it's quite costly and quite an overhead in the compliance required to fly one of these drones. I feel, though, over the next 5 years, as we get comfortable with them and their systems and obstacle avoidance systems and safety systems improve as well, that will ease back on the compliance. And if you're a farmer, it would make sense in a few years' time if you're a big farmer, to invest in one. And we're in this funny situation where they consider a quad bike to be 10 or 20 times safer than a drone, whereas if someone has an accident on a quad bike, they're going to get hurt. Whereas if there's an accident with a drone, there's nobody around, they don't get hurt. Yeah, the compliance cost of a quad bike is zero, and the compliance cost of a drone is about $5-6 grand a year. So we're sort of a little bit out of whack between the actual risk, the perceived risk, and the actual risk. Yeah.
Because, I mean, obviously quads, used correctly, and most of them are, they're an absolute asset. But my gosh, yes, there's been many terrible accidents, and quads are dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. I suppose, though, Craig, when you're talking about putting something up into the sky, you understand why civil aviation is.
Yes.
I mean, because you hear those 100%. Stories of those idiots that fly them near the airport, and they're just the muckabout ones. So you do want a strong regulatory behind it, wouldn't you?
Kiwis love being outdoors, so why not transform your outdoor living space with a Sunview? With our quality range of stylish pergolas, outdoor blinds and awnings, having a Sunview is like adding a new room to your home, but for a fraction of the price. Enjoy the outdoors all year round with a range of products to suit your needs. Book a free consultation now with Sunview and see the difference.